We fixed the overheating issue, but it's not what you'd expect. Welcome back to the ATB channel, guys. Today we are working on the E30. Our E30 has been overheating and we have thrown everything at it. As you know from the previous episodes, we changed the viscous fan. However, we've also now changed the water pump, the thermostat, the switches. Nothing seems to be working until we found the real culprit. And trust me, you would not expect it to be this. So sit back and join us as we tackle this issue in this episode. If it's the first time that you're here, we have episodes on this E30 which you can check out in the link in the description below, where you will see all the things that we have done up until this point. But for now, let's get on with fixing this issue on this car. Let's get it. Right guys, so unfortunately the viscous fan, it didn't repair the overheating issue, so I'm going to try the next thing, which is the thermostat. After the viscous fan, the temperature will stay in the middle while it was standstill, but then when I took it for a drive, like an extended drive, it was creeping up again. So unfortunately it didn't fix it. So what I'm going to do now is replace the thermostat and see what happens there. I'll probably put you guys on a time lapse. Thermostat's a very simple thing to do, but I will show you a few clips of how it's done, what bolts I'm removing, what I am removing to get to it, and then once it's fitted, we'll test and see if it has fixed the overheating issue. So fingers crossed, hopefully we can do it. So in prep to get this job done, I've put the car up on ramps. I drove it up onto these ramps so that I can start draining the coolant. I need to drain the coolant because as soon as I take the thermostat off, it will just fall all over the place and probably get all over the engine. So I'm basically going to drain it from the drain plug and then start to assess the job and see what else I need. So here you can see I'm just getting all my tools ready. So as you can see here, I've already drained some of the coolant out as much as I can from the drain plug. I'm going to take the time now to start taking parts away from the car. So I'm going to start taking the viscous fan off, the shroud, just so that I can get access to the bolts for the thermostat housing. Now it's a pretty simple job to take the thermostat housing off. It's literally just 3 bolts that are 10mm, and I can show you here how I'm doing that. And it really does require just basic tools. Once the housing is off, I just use a pair of pliers to pull out the thermostat. I've managed to take the thermostat out now. It does look a bit cruddy and rusty, which is not a great sign. It means there's a lot of water inside the engine instead of coolant. But I'm going to go test this right now. I'm going to put it in boiling water and see if it actually works. I'll show you the results. I've put the thermostat in boiling water and I can clearly see that it is opening, which is kind of concerning because if this is opening and allowing cold air to come through the engine at the right time, then why is my temperature still rising? So I'm going to change it anyway. And the other thing I've got is I've got 2 temperature switches as well. So I'm going to get those fitted as well and see what happens. It's just, I guess, a case of trial and error here. But yeah, I can see that, you know, this is in boiling water and clearly opened up. It's not opening a good amount, I think, but it does definitely look like it needs changing anyway. So I'm going to get it replaced, going to change the temperature switches, and then we'll see how we get on. Here is the new thermostat. Going to open it up here. It's a new one with a new gasket. Let's get it fitted. I want to show you quickly the inside of this housing is looking nasty, so I'm going to give that a quick clean the surfaces before I put this back in, just so that it seals properly. And yeah, I'd like to see it all nice and clean. I might give it a bit of a clean around there as well, just before I get it fitted. That's right, I don't want any of that grit and grime to get in the way of the seals, but also it's just not nice for it to be there. So I took the time to clean out all that grime, all that corroded coolant, and used a cloth and a wire brush to just scrub it off as it does become hard and crystallized. I feel like it's just good practice as well. In the end, it also creates a good surface for the 2 parts to meet up so that it creates a proper seal. There you go guys, I've been at it for a little while now. That looks so much better in there. And that also looks much better. I've just been like hacking at it with a wire brush. So yeah, I'm just going to carry on fit this thermostat in. So from here onwards is literally a reverse process of putting this thermostat back in. And it's just a case of making sure the seal is right and making sure the bolts go in correctly and everything is put in the right way. Just be mindful here that the thermostat goes in the way it came out, because it can literally go in either way and this will cause an overheating issue. Trust me, I've had this issue in the past before and learned the hard way. That thermostat is fitted all in, and the next thing I'm going to do is change the two switches. So these are temperature switches, normally sends the signal to the dash about the temperature. So you've got a blue one, and I believe the other one is either black or brown. Let's just check that. Yep, in this case it is a black one, so I'm going to take those ones out and replace them, and then we can test. It was a little bit difficult to film this because of the location of these switches, but in essence this is where they're located on the block. I got stuck right in. I had to remove a few parts to be able to get to these temperature sensors. The airbox, the boot that goes to the throttle body, and then there's a bracket that holds a few electrical parts against the engine that I had to remove to give me access to remove these sensors. After a bit of fiddling, because it's in such an awkward place, I managed to get it out. So I got the first one out. It's a blue one. Looks like it's the original one, probably never ever been changed, so this is probably a good thing to do anyway. Yeah, let's get these changed. Hopefully it's a positive one. So as you saw, I took the blue one out and I've put the new one in. Now I'm attempting to take the brown one / black one out, and we'll get that one replaced too. And here is the other one. There's obvious difference. This one looks a bit brown, red, orangey. This one's black, but the connections are the same and they've got the same number on the inside. But not just that, the supplier also told me that these are the same. So though it's a different color, he did say that these are coming up with the same part number. So hopefully nothing to worry about there. Let's get it fitted. And again, it's just a reverse process of putting everything back together as I took it off. I also noticed that there was a broken pipe under the inlet manifold, so I take the time to always change these or fit them properly, even if it's a case of cutting back the pipe a little bit further where the crack is and then fitting it back together. In this case, I think I actually replaced the pipe just so that it doesn't cause any vacuum leaks. Whenever I spot this on old cars, I always make the effort to repair it because it makes a big difference in the running of the engine. As that is mostly all fitted back now, all I got to do is put the viscous fan on the shroud, and then for now I'm going to fill it with water to test it, but I will be replacing that with proper coolant. It's just that I don't have any right now and I don't really want to put that stuff in, well, this stuff back in, because I don't know, it just looks a bit rusty if I'm honest. So yeah, I'm going to stick some water in there for now and give it a whirl. So I will be replacing this water with proper coolant, and later down the line you will see why I actually need to do this. Anyway, the water is in and it will help push the system out. I have bled the system by filling it with the bleed nipple off, and then I've then started it just to check that, you know, there's no more air in there, which it wasn't. It was just like a constant stream of coolant coming out of there. So then I just closed that up, topped it off and started it up and let it run for a bit. So now I'm just waiting for the temperature to rise just to test the parts that I fitted, so the thermostat and the two switches. So yeah, just letting it run for a bit, letting it tick over, getting it up to temperature, and then I'm gonna see how she runs and if the temperature, if she overheats or not. So yeah, let's keep an eye on it and we'll take it from there. Right guys, I've run it for a little while now and it is still overheating slightly. just slightly though, but this is while it's been static. So I'm gonna take it down, take it for a drive and see if that temperature comes down a bit. If not, then further investigation. I don't know what else it could be. I've done the viscous fan now, I've done the thermostat, I've done both the switches. Now it could be maybe the water pump, but the water seems to be flowing around nicely, so could be the water pump, I don't know. But yeah, just let me take it for a test drive now, see how it runs, and we'll take it from there. Alright guys, clearly the issue hasn't gone away, the car is still overheating. However, a weird thing is happening. The fuel gauge is like bouncing all over the place. So I have a feeling that there could be something wrong with the cluster itself. I know that there is a battery behind here, so I'm gonna take the cluster out and just change the battery and see if that makes a difference, because the car itself doesn't overheat. Like, it doesn't feel like it's getting stupidly hot like when I touch the pipe. So I got a feeling it's potentially an electrical problem, and even when I do like just tap this, like it kind of changes the temperature here and there, like just ever so slightly, like it's going back down right now. So yeah, I'm gonna give that a go. If it's not that, then maybe it's the water pump that could be the issue. So process of elimination, see what happens. Right guys, we're skipping to another day, and as I said, the E30 was still showing as overheating. So I've decided to buy a water pump for the E30. So I've changed the thermostat, I've changed the switches, I've changed the viscous fan, and I'm going to do the water pump. And hopefully then at least I know that mechanically the coolant system is fine and it's actually not overheating, even if it does show as it's overheating, because then I got a feeling that it's the cluster that's the problem. So yeah, I'm gonna stick you on a time lapse again. You basically know what I'm gonna do, because I've done this job like twice now, where I've taken the viscous fan and all that off. So water pump is basically the next step. So yeah, I'll stick you guys on a time lapse, and I'll take this water pump off, get it replaced. Fingers crossed, we'll take it from there. So guys, I really want to show you the E30 after it's been detailed. I'm really excited to show you the befores and afters, but it's a priority for me at the minute to get the car running right and making sure that it's not overheating. So yeah, like I said, let's do the water pump in this part of the video, and let's get a new one fitted and get it tested. We don't know when it was last done, so for us it's a good thing and a step in the right direction. And also, so what I'm doing here is basically taking off the belts that go around the pulleys, which will give me access to the water pump pulley, which I will take off with the 4 10mm bolts that are in the center of it. Once I took the pulley off, this gave me access to the 4 bolts that are around the water pump. I took those 4 bolts out, and then this is where I hit a bit of a tricky part. So to remove this water pump, it's a case of extracting it. This is because it sits inside the engine with a rubber ring around it. So it is pretty tricky to remove, and it's not just a case of taking the bolts out and pulling it off. There is a very clever system with the water pump where there's 2 places where you can screw in a bolt at the top and a bolt at the bottom, screw them in, and as you're screwing them in, the water pump extracts itself. However, unfortunately, when I did this, the 2 brackets broke, which meant that I had no other option but to wiggle it out. Now, as you can see, it's getting darker and darker and the light is getting less, so this became a bit of a tricky job. So I did keep on attempting to remove it just by wiggling it out and trying to extract it out. Unfortunately, it didn't work. So we're on to the next morning. So I kept hacking at it with a big plier in attempt to crack this water pump loose. I just kept going at it and wiggling it, and eventually it slowly started coming out, and in the end it was out. As you can see here, guys, it was a bit of a struggle to take the water pump out. The two extraction parts on either side of the water pump actually snapped off in the process, but you can see why I've taken this pump off. There's an actual break in the housing, look at that. I got a feeling it was still doing its job, but probably not very well. So yeah, I'm glad I'm changing this part, and this is the new shiny one with a metal propeller. Much better, much smoother. Housing is intact, and it comes with a new seal. So let's get this on the car and get it tested. As always, I take the time to clean the area before I fit a new part, especially when it's to do with the cooling system. As mentioned before, it gets crystallized and crusty and doesn't create a good seal when you put the new part in. So it's always a good thing to do this. Right guys, it's another day because there was a mix-up on the pump that was supplied. The housing mounts were slightly different. So we're going to continue and fit this water pump back. As you've probably seen, I was cleaning up the surface area just where the seal goes, just so that it's a nice seal. But yeah, probably stick you guys back on a time lapse and get this water pump fitted. As before, this is just a reverse process. So I'm putting the water pump back in using a bit of lube on the O-ring, and then I'm putting the 4 bolts and then just tightening them up as I go around slowly so the water pump sits evenly into the block. I then use this pulley tool, which came in a set with the viscous fan tool, and then go around and tighten up the pulley bolts, and then I put all the belts back on like I took them off. It's literally just a reverse process, and then we get on to making sure the final bits are fitted back on so that we can test this engine. Right guys, as you can see, that's all been put back together now. I've put the pump in, the pulley and the viscous fan now, and the belt, and tightened it all up. Next thing I'm going to do is fill coolant into the system, bleed it all out through the bleed valve and let it circulate through, and then we can basically start the car, warm it up and see what happens, see if that temperature comes up again. If it does, then I have a feeling that it's the actual cluster that's the problem, because we've done now the switches, we've done the thermostat, we've done the water pump, the viscous fan and fresh coolant. So if it's not all of those things, then I don't know what it could be at this stage. So yeah, let's give it a go and see what happens. So before I started putting fresh coolant in, I decided to flush out the old stuff that was in there. So as you can see, I'm using a hose pipe with fresh water and just flushing out all of that old coolant. I then proceed to putting in fresh coolant with distilled water. Distilled water is used in engines, specifically in the cooling system, because it contains no minerals or impurities which could build up inside the engine, cause corrosion, scale formation and potential damage to the radiator and other cooling components. So guys, I filled up the coolant and I have basically bled the whole system. So now I am warming it up to see what the temperature says. Everything seems to be doing all right, but yeah, let me just quickly show you what's going on. So just going inside the car now. The car's just started its cold start, but as you see, the temperature is coming up slowly. I'm just waiting for engine to warm up, and then once we get it to a optimal temperature sort of stage, then I'll do an assessment on what's going on, check the levels, and then yeah, just hope that it's hopefully sorted the problem. I will keep you guys posted on what's going on, and hopefully, you know, fingers crossed it's all good. As you can see guys, even after the pump change, the car is overheating still. I did a block test, which I'll show you next, which tests the head gasket. We'll see what the case is. Hopefully it is not a head gasket and this is just a cluster issue, because this cluster has been playing up slightly and causing us some issues in terms of like the fuel gauge bouncing, the mileage not working, and sometimes the lights come on in the dash. So fingers crossed, let's see what happens. So I did a block test on the car using a tester, and the way you do this is you run the car up to temperature, put the tester in where you would put the coolant in from, and then just suck up air into the tester, and that goes through the fluid. The fluid then monitors what content is coming in that air that's going into the fluid, and it will determine whether there's a leak in the head gasket. As you can see here on the box, it says if the blue color turns yellow, there is a leak present in the block. And in our case, the fluid is still blue, so there isn't a head gasket issue with this car. So guys, as you can see, even after the block test, it's showing a negative result for head gasket. So I'm inclined to think that it is the cluster that's the problem here. We've now changed the switch. As you've seen, we've changed the thermostat, the water pump, and now the viscous fan as well. So and then done a block test to check for head gasket issues, and that's coming up as negative. So yeah, I'm inclined to think it's the cluster that's the issue now. Fingers crossed. So yeah, that's everything we could potentially try in our power with the E30. Unfortunately, it is showing as overheating. The engine doesn't act like it's overheating or anything like that. You know, coolant is still going through the engine, through the top pipe and the bottom pipe, and the thermostat is engaging. But yeah, I'd like to get to the bottom of the cluster issue. But yeah, we're gonna leave it here for now. I would love to continue to build the E30, lower it, put some nice wheels on it, get that IS look that I wanted, but we potentially have a new buyer for the E30, and they're very interesting and very keen to take it on. Unfortunately, well, fortunately, we have another very big project coming in alongside the E23. So yeah, stay tuned guys. Right, another job on this car. The cluster is not working. Well, it is working, but it's not clocking the mileage, and there's a few lights that are coming up on this intermittently, like the brake light. So yeah, and also the fuel gauge is not great either. So we're going to take this cluster out, and we're going to send it off to E30 cluster guy. Basically, he's in Poland and he rebuilds these, so we're going to send it out to him. He's going to rebuild it, put some new gears in it, and probably put a new glass in it and stuff like that. Send it back to us, and we're going to get it fitted in. So yeah, I'm just literally going to take a video of me taking this out. So as mentioned, E30 clusters, he is a specialist in rebuilding these clusters. He literally strips them apart. He puts new screws, new bulbs, new needles, whatever it is that your cluster needs, he will have the parts for it, and he will rebuild it and make sure it's all working good. And in our case, he did the bits that needed doing, and there were some parts that needed resoldering as well behind the cluster, because these deteriorate over time. So yeah, he completely rebuilt it. He polished the glass for us because it didn't need replacing. However, if yours does need replacing, he will do that too. And he sent it back to us in a working condition. Also, the removal of this cluster was pretty simple. There's 6 screws in total, 4 at the top, 2 at the bottom, and then there's a bit of trim that you have to take out from the bottom, under the steering wheel, and also the kick panel from underneath. And in essence, it's just a case of pulling it out and squeezing it out the side of the steering wheel. As you can see, I didn't need to remove the steering wheel to do this job. So we sent the cluster off. We waited a few weeks for E30 clusters to work its magic, and then we received it back and got it fitted back into the E30, and everything works amazingly, and even the temperature works as well. The lights work, the mileage is clocking as well, all the other gauges work, the fuel doesn't jump, and it all works as expected. So an amazing job. That's the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe, and we will see you on the next one, where we will show you a finished product of this car. So basically images and videos of once it's been detailed, and we'll show you a few befores and afters. See you in the next one.